KTH. So well, for those of you who are not familiar with the initiative at KTH, so just very brief. So we started this circular economy initiative well, more than 4 years ago, and it's been in its let's say process of evolution, development, and it will be continuing for a while further. From this platform, the major aim has been to promote and strengthen the education, research, and outreach in the circular economy. And we have been very actively collaborating with the partners within KTH across the board and outside KTH, particularly creating a network with the industry and trying to support the industry in its transition towards circular economy. And that's where our connection and our link with the Scania got realized. Paulina, a couple of years back, we got on board, and Paulina very enthusiastically took up the challenge at Scania, and we were part of the journey that Paulina was actually leading at Scania. So today, Paulina is here to tell us about this journey and, of course, where Scania is. So I hand over to Paulina, and I would like to welcome you, Paulina, and thank you very much for your availability and the seminar today.
Thank you very much. So nice to see you. I've met some of you before, but I do agree with you, Amir. It's a very impressive audience here today. I'm very glad that this subject is on top of many people's mind now, and even more so sort of moving forward, more and more people realize the potentials within this area. Yes, my name is Paulina Edblad Granholm.
Ja,
I have been working.
Om du inte ska sitta och prata i telefon.
Sorry? No? All right. Yeah, I've been working within Scania for 17 years, and I am passionate about merging sustainability with business and leadership. And those three are becoming more and more synonymous for me. And I'm very grateful that I have had the opportunity to combine them in different ways throughout my years at Scania. And one big sort of mission I have is to bridge different kinds of gaps, basically, to make sure that we do what we can to translate theory and science into practice, to translate big sort of PowerPoint slides into what we actually start up Monday morning with. So yes, I'm very glad to be here. So thank you very much for inviting me. I'll share screen and share some different points as much as I can with you. I believe very much in sharing and collaborating. So trying to be as transparent as we can about the journey we're on, because it's a very exciting one. So I'll share screen to show you how we're approaching this. So, do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. About a bit more than 100 years ago, a train wagon manufacturer merged with a bicycle manufacturer and evolved into the Scania that has over the years been through big and small transformations, so different kinds of shifts. But the shift that we are in right now is unprecedented. The entire automotive industry is in a big shift, and really a multi-dimensional shift. So it's a super interesting place and sort of place in history that we are in right now, with a lot of different drivers interacting into a lot of sort of new sort of opportunities emerging. I am very sort of grateful to be in a company who's aiming to be by the steering wheel of this, rather than backseat driving. And this shift we need to collaborate cross-functionally to enable, but it's basically to make sure that we arrive to a sustainable future where sustainable sort of transport system is creating a world of mobility that is better for business and society and the environment. And it's very interesting to see how we can do that. In 2014, I was asked by Henrik Henriksson to elaborate around the vision for Scania to be the leader in sustainable transport. What does that mean? And to further develop that content, which was a very daunting but still inspiring task, where we collaborated cross-functionally to gather as much input from brilliant minds, both inside Scania and outside. And some of the findings from that were these. Looking at sort of this shift, we highlighted, for example, these three, looking at the system perspective and basically optimizing the transport system on different levels. Also, the importance of enabling partnerships to make that happen, built on trust. And also, of course, having focus on the value that we bring. So making sure that we maximize the value we bring together with partners and, of course, our customers. And the customers have for a very long time been a relentless focus for Scania, which is, of course, very much in line with circularity, and also sort of aiming at premium quality is also very much in line with circularity. So one of the areas that we highlighted back in 2014 and 2015 were closed loop strategy. So it has been on the table since then. It has matured over the years, and we are, of course, on a journey. We're not there yet where we want to be, but we are step by step making progress. I'll share some of how we are framing this. So we're not anymore calling it closed loop strategy, but rather Scania Circular Business. And that's because we want to underline the importance of the business value here. We're looking at a contribution towards society, and it is important that we do it from a holistic approach, and making sure that it is from a business rationale. So the ambition that we have framed is within circular business to have a step change before 2025. And of course, this is very much interlinked with other areas where we also have high ambitions, but making sure that this is interlinked where it is relevant, of course, and not least within CO2 reductions, but also within other sort of lean and other ambitions we do have within the company. I'll come back to that. But since the start of this renewed strategy, it is a central part of how we frame sustainability at Scania, and it's a part of the 2025 strategy. And I thought for today I'll try to highlight findings and enablers on different levels. So of course, starting from our purpose, the purpose for Scania, and the vision that we have that we would like to enable together with others. But of course, the translation. How did we translate this into circular business, and taking that forward? How do we frame it? So basically both the process of developing it, but also where we are right now. Then I thought to add some layers to be concrete. I'd like to highlight also a journey we are on within Scania Parts and Service. So one of the business areas where we do have ambitions and taking clear steps forward to make it even more concrete. And another layer of that is within Parts and Service, we also do make progress within Scania Parts Packaging as a even more sort of concrete topic. So I'm trying to highlight on all these levels, and to see, I would like to bring as much value to you as I can in this journey. All right. For Scania, a very strong fundament that we have is our Scania Way model. So we have a production system that sets out the base for our values, our principles, and our priorities to gather around this. So it's really a symbol for our culture. And this is very strong, and we have noticed that quite a few of these have a very strong connection to circularity, not least customer first. As I mentioned, we have a relentless focus on customer and being close to the customer, but also elimination of waste, which is also a core value for us. Sometimes we also mention it as quality. So really making sure that we deliver premium quality and eliminate waste as far as we possibly can. So those are some of the important connections, I believe, but there are others as well. But this fundament is really helping us on a circularity transition journey. Then another thing I'd like to highlight is our modular system that is very, very strong within Scania to keep the number of components as few as possible and make it possible to exchange certain parts. So this is enabling both customer adaptations, but doing it in an efficient way throughout our organization. So that is very helpful on the way. Another thing I'd like to highlight is basically a strategic bet we did some years back, where we made investments to make sure that all our vehicles that we deliver are connected. So using the data to help our customers as far as we possibly can. And just earlier this year, we passed 500,000 connected vehicles throughout the world. One interesting reflection I got from Georg Hell, that you may know, he indicated that you can see the Silky Road on our sort of connected maps, which is quite interesting. But basically learning about how our products are actually being used is a very strong leverage for us that we can use, and which we can use even more moving ahead. Yeah, this is providing us with a lot of useful information, and basically the aim is to help our customers perform as well as we can, and that we are a good partner in making sure that that happens. And this is of course very helpful as well from a circularity point of view. Then last but not least are also our science-based targets that we are setting up, very challenging but still realistic targets when it comes to CO2 improvements. And there, of course, circularity can also be a big enabler for us to make sure that we deliver on this and that we help our customers to deliver on it. So again, it's making sure that we do what we can from within our operation, but also enabling the usage of our products, the functionality that we provide. All right, I'll move on to the Scania Circular Business. When we started framing this, we gathered cross-functionally to again gather competence across Scania, and we started elaborating around what to do. And of course, early on in this method, basically that we went on, was to make sure that we have a common view upon what we're talking about. What is circular economy? And so the first approach was to dig into different kind of publications, and of course to team up also with academia. And here circular economy at KTH has been a very much help for us, and of course other very competent external experts helping us to frame the area. What are we talking about? And a big part in this is making sure that we link it to our vocabulary within Scania, to put our words on it, but also potentially introducing new definitions. So that was basically the first step. Then we did quite intense work cross-functionally within Scania to elaborate around the material in a workshop series. So during 12 weeks, we conducted 7 workshops together. So it was a very short and intense week for the 2025 strategy, but basically delivering a starting point or a continued sort of framing of circularity. So what we arrived in is a circular business. And to support it, we have a model that comes in 2 different designs, but basically we're talking about the same thing, but framing it more or less detailed. I'll get back to that, to really make sure that we talk about the same thing. And to support that, we have also developed material to explain the why as far as possible. Why is this important? To explain and as far as possible be specific about the business rationale for this. Then of course, what we're talking about, and as far as possible also defining the vision we would like to get to. And we've aimed at 2035, where can we potentially be there, and also see what targets can be relevant to introduce into the Scania targets. Then also from where, to make sure that we have a picture of the present state with an inventory of capabilities and different kinds of potential pools. And then how and who, sort of arriving into a circular business roadmap. So those are sort of the different things underpinning the model. And to make this happen, we have also elaborated around different kinds of enablers. And of course, the Scania way with the house is big, but you see here, I highlighted a few of the enablers that we have seen sort of from an internal perspective, and of course, very much the culture, linking it to what we stand for and how we act is crucial. And there we do have a strong base from the Scania Way house. Then, of course, competence building to make sure that we do have competence in the right areas, but also making sure that we make decisions based on facts and science. Then linking this as well to a transformation internally, we are right in the midst of right now as well, which is focusing on flow perspective and lean, to make sure that we are agile and flexible to approach road ahead, which very likely will demand more of flexibility from us. So of course, this is a change journey. We need change leadership to make this happen and make it easy to make the right actions. And to do that, we need to be very diverse in our approach to make sure that we have a lot of different perspectives and competences and make sure that we include them in the right moment. But then it comes down to, of course, ability to execute, to make it happen. And that's what I think is the interesting sort of translation when we actually get to do different things, what can get us there. So these are some highlights from the internal enablers, but also, of course, the value proposition and sort of moving towards the customer. We have a strong ground from having a common purpose, and here we can have even more of help teaming up with others who also have the same purpose. So a lot of focus on the purpose and a lot of focus on the functionality and the customer focus here, and of course having this system perspective to avoid sub-optimization. And it's a lot about challenging our system boundaries. What are we really optimizing? And here different kinds of innovations and digital tools can help us to visualize the system we are set to optimize. And there, of course, we do also have transparency is needed to make sure that we have data and we have information about the system we have in front of us. But really, sort of digital enablers and tools is crucial here to make sure that we connect circularity to the digitalization. And of course, based on the customer need or the functionality we would like to provide, make sure that we do challenge the business models as far as we can to see in what way we can design deliverables where we capture much more of the value. Solution sales is very much connected to that. So we look at the solution towards customer in a much more holistic view. What's the complete offer we are looking at, and then designing it based on that. So very much having design in the center and designing it for the functionality and making sure that we have the strategies and principles to support it. And all of this, as you see, there are a lot of different components here, but when they interact, they can really make this happen. And partnership is, of course, one very crucial thing to glue all this together. We can't do everything ourselves. We need to team up and collaborate. So these are some of the enablers, sort of interconnecting. And then sort of based on that, we can leverage even more. So looking at these sort of enablers, what would we like to focus on? And in the Scania Circular Business model, we are highlighting 4 different areas. We put the design in the heart of the model. It has to start there, to design for life, sort of design for a life cycle perspective. So starting there, and then use the resources we have available, and also, of course, in closed and open loop, interact with others to make sure that we use the resources as much as possible. Basically seeing waste as a resource in the wrong place, so making sure it gets to the right place. And using that resource to extend the life as long as we possibly can. So product life extension is, of course, very big part to help our customers keep the value in their equipment up as far as we can. All of this is enabled by the business models. So we can do the first 3, but we will most likely get even more leverage from it the further we go in offering product as a service. So go towards selling functionality instead. And I think it's really fascinating sort of when we get to the point when we realize the leverage where the one who is designing a product is also the one owning it. How much of sort of question marks are being removed if something is good or not. It's even easier to see where there is waste. So I think they are very interconnected, but the product as a service as the key sort of to enable and unlock even more of potential. And this model we have also in this version that we may feel more familiar within Scania to use this kind of design, but still using both of them depending on what is sort of useful. So looking at this model even more in detail, we have defined, for example, how to frame design for life. And these are some examples of different strategies and principles to hold on to. Then we also have, as I mentioned, the resource utilization, both sort of what kind of material we source, but also how we make use of material that is being in some way not used throughout the process. And potentially, of course, making sure that we get the material back in different loops as high value as possible. And within product life extension, we have a quite broad set of different customer offers. And basically using the R principles in trying to keep the value up as far as we possibly can. And some of these areas are centrally driven, and others are more locally driven, but still putting them even more sort of together and enabling even more of progress here. Then the innovative business models, sort of challenging the complete setup. We do that stepwise. I'll get back to that. But we already today sort of offer rental and operational lease. We have a very well-developed financial company within Scania, enabling even more of sort of customer sort of finance solutions, and also enabling this kind of rental setup with operational lease. And moving ahead, we can elaborate even more on stretching this. We do have vehicle as a service and transport as a service in sort of some different parts of the organization, but really sort of elaborating on how to scale even more. That's the journey we're on. Then this journey, sort of to make sure that we do have focus on the business value, we have a brilliant strategy department who's done a study to on a very overall level frame the potentials for Scania. And this is on a very overall scale sort of level, and the complete system is very complex. So of course the potentials differ depending on what kind of application we're talking about, and of course the region, etc. But elaborating around the business value is critical to make sure that we have an agreement that this direction is valuable for us and for our customers and for our partners. So we have started framing it, and I can't go into detail to it, unfortunately, but I'll show it more as an illustrative example, that doing this kind of sort of value potential estimate, it's a rough estimate, and in this picture it's illustrative, but still sort of looking at a vehicle as a service sort of concept, what value could potentially be captured in a circular business model compared to the traditional linear one. And here we have found some very interesting NPV calculations, but also product cost reductions. So this study is one sort of building block that we of course will continue to specify and to underpin with more information and science, etc., to make sure that we frame it sort of what is relevant. But it's a very important brick to stand on, because of course the business is evolving, and on a very principle level we are approaching transport as a service. But as I said, it's a journey, and we will see how fast it goes. Of course, we have to have the customers and the complete sort of system with us, but sort of aiming at it and collaborating with others who also wants to make it happen. So these are on a very sort of Scania overall perspective, but then looking, because I wanted to make it even more concrete, that in one part of the Scania business, the business area of Scania Parts Service, we have put on glasses with sustainability for some years back, and we are on a journey to frame this. What is sustainability and what is circularity within this business area? So we have started on a very high level, as you see, with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and framing where do we have our impact, where do we influence? To frame that, and based on that, integrate into our strategic plans and our strategies, our mission, our vision, and of course the sort of business strategies. So right now, 3 out of 9 core business strategies are permitted with circularity, and the others with other kinds of sustainability aspects. So that's really nice to see. We're making it step by step. We're not claiming perfection, but we have a very, I would say, solid approach to this, and are moving forward, because now we take it on to the next level with the sort of targets follow-up procedure, and also with the roadmap, sort of linking it to projects that we actually prioritize on different horizons here. So this is very nice, sort of to make it into, translate it into what we actually do, and step by step we will further develop this. Within this area, we have the parts packaging area, where it's even more on a sort of concrete level, that we actually look at the packaging of our spare parts going out into the global network. And we have approximately 140,000 part numbers on the shelves. That is fairly low, even though it's a high number. It's actually fairly low because we do have the modular system. So that is helping us to reduce the number of part numbers. But some years back, taking this picture, we saw some potential within this area, that it is a traditional area, and we did see pools of potential that we wanted to capture. So since some years back, we have an initiative where we are framing these potentials, and we have set up quite high ambitions to stretch as far as we can, while still, of course, being realistic, but still challenging this area and trying to find new ways of doing this. So what we've done is to frame a vision that we would like to do, and we really want to challenge this area, and again with others. So learning how to make the packaging area sort of even more sustainable, even more circular, but providing solutions focusing on the purpose of the packaging and make it fit for that purpose, making that purpose being that we provide value which is sustainable, and embracing innovations as far as we can, and really looking at proactively design this, and build competence around this and collaborate with others to make that happen. So some of the ambitions we have set up is, as an aspirational target, is to have 100% either recycled or renewable packaging material, but also that 100% of the packaging is either being reused or being recycled. And that is a challenge, because in many of the countries where we are with where we ship, spare parts are not, they do not have a fully functioning recycling system, but sort of aiming at it and step by step see how we can help to improve this. To make this happen, we have set up both a sort of strategic framework to set the direction, set the ambition, and handshake that cross-functionally within Scania, and also a governance structure to follow up and to enable progress within this area, and of course challenge the standards, see what tools we can use, what methods we can use to make it happen. But really framing where we want to go, we have again used the Scania Circular Business model and framed where would we like to go, what would be a sustainable packaging. And we have elaborated around this with the competent input from outside of Scania. And we have main focus right now on these two, to make sure that the design is made to be fit for purpose, but also challenging the material that we're using and enabling step change here. Before I end, I want to show you some concrete pilots to be even more specific on the outcome of this, but these are still, they are on some somewhat different level, but really they are all about challenging the status quo. And one pilot is a packaging that we introduced some years back, where we are inspired by the bee sort of honeycomb structure, where the honeycomb structure makes the material stronger. So we can actually use one material instead of four. And it is also being recycled to about 80% and 100% recyclable. And also improving ergonomically as well. So we have made this pilot and we are right now in a place where we can evaluate it and potentially scale this kind of initiative. We are selling approximately 30,000 per year of this packaging, well, with the product, of course. So that is one example of what we've done. Then we have also looked at the design strategy model developed for the delegation of circular economy for Sweden. Within that sort of model, we have elaborated to find new innovations, to find new ideas on how to enable sustainability through circularity. So we have some ideas on 4 of these different topics that we are right now looking on how to take forward. And one of them, which is of course very obvious, is to introduce recycled plastics, for example. When it comes to parts packaging, it's very important that we have a consistent appearance from intellectual property right to make sure that we can identify copies of our products. So the packaging appearance is extra important. So what we need to do now, we have started in production to introduce 80% recycled plastics. So we are about to evaluate that and see to what extent we can do the same thing for the plastic material going out into the service network. So that's good. That's a learning journey we're on, and to help each other to find good solutions to this, because it's vital to be able to scale this. The appearance needs to be consistent both within the batch but also over time, and that we can be very specific to customs what is an original Scania part and what is a pirate. So there are a lot of different needs interacting here, but that's a very interesting learning journey we're on. Another big potential is, of course, to use the data in the system to optimize. And that's also something, a journey we're on. We're not fully where we want to be, but we have a structured approach to it to see how we can enable even more of optimization using the data. All right, those are some examples. I'd like to open up for questions.
Thank you very much, Paulina, for this fantastic presentation. Really interesting to see from the insider what is happening in Scania. Right, then we have about 25 minutes for questions in this session. We can take it into a queue. So you can raise your hand using the function from Zoom. In reactions in the bottom right, you find raise your hands, and then we have already 2, and I suggest that you say your name and where you work and pose your question. Thank you. I'm not sure who was the first, either Theo or Anna. We take ladies first. Anna, please.
You're muted.
Thank you. Am I now, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. I'm Anna-Karin Jömrink. I work at AFRY with Circular Economy and Sustainability as a manager for consultants on that path. I'm also the manager of a project on behalf of Resource, the Strategic Innovation Program, which will have a workshop just within some minutes.
Yeah.
And the key yes. question there I want to raise is, what do you see? I mean, that research is about the transition in a global perspective. What do we see as enablers, and And what are the barriers towards going to a circular economy in an international way? What do we see as have you seen anything yet which you can share with me, which I can then share with the others? Just so
I have signed up actually, so I'm joining.
Yeah, that's great.
No, but that's a very important topic, and both the obstacles, but also the enablers for it. And there are several dimensions to this, but of course, to one extent, standards would help us a lot of different kinds. So I would say that the more we can standardize and also make it sort of easier to combine things, it would help. So standards are one thing. Then one thing we're sort of that we're working on within Scania is this sort of well, since we need to keep up the sort of value here, we for us the big thing is to enable the circular system, and of course the linear system has been fine-tuned for more than 100 years. It's super difficult to compete with a circular system beside a linear system where we have so much competence and so much optimization. It is challenging. We need to help the circular system to compete. And one very sort of practical part of that is different kinds of material streams. How can we make it possible for them to cross sort of international boundaries, but making it sort of easier to see where are material streams available, what could we potentially make from them. And for us to be able to scale, we need to rely on the quality, and it can both be from a durability perspective, but also from an aesthetical perspective, to have the same appearance over time. How can we make sure that we can rely on it? Because of course it's easier to do pilots, but then going from a pilot to scale, that's where we're trying to get to. Then it's trickier to make sure that we can source that much material and know what we're getting over time. That's some of the sort of spontaneous answer to it, but I'd love to elaborate more in sort of detail.
Yeah, we will come to that later on. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I learned the queue is automatically from the left to the right. So Theo.
Thank you. I'm curious about the implementation. I'm Theo Enlund. I'm working at Nitec with the sustainability and circular design, and right now investigating on Scania, so it's spot on. But I'm curious about the implementation in the organization. You talk a lot about the strategies and so on, but how do you fight business as usual? As you pointed out, the linear system have been fine-tuned for hundreds of years, and people within the organization are all that used to it. So how do you make that change internally?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And of course, it's a part of change management. But in a way, connecting this to the overall shift is helping us, because I don't think there are many of our 50,000 employees who hasn't sort of seen that we're in the middle of a shift. So it's more to frame the content of this shift and also the speed of it. So bringing people on board, we have come to a certain extent, but we haven't reached out to everyone with the sort of circularity competence yet. That's the journey we're on. But it's nice to see that it is on many agendas within the company, not least the executive board. So we had a top management meeting just the other week, and it is clearly shown as the path forward. But then understanding what that means is a learning journey for us, and that will not happen overnight. So now it's really to enable progress, and also to highlight good initiative internally to be able to scale them and to inspire others on similar journeys.
Yeah.
so it's a work in progress. We're not where we want to be yet, but I'm so glad that it's a clear sort of part of our 2025 strategy and a lot of brilliant people thinking about this.
Yeah, thank you.
Nick?
Hello, dear colleagues, Paulina. It's a pleasure to be a part of this seminar, and I'm connected from Prague, Czech Republic, and I'm working for your sister brand Skoda. In my capacity, I support the transformation and I'm responsible for the strategical part, electrify Central and Eastern Europe. Electrification and circular business as a part of this approach is also our primary task for 2030 strategy. But actually, I would frame it that it's all in your mind. So how you support the transformation and the mindset? Could you give us some valuable hints from Scania perspective, please?
Yeah, no, as you say, it is a transformation of perspective, basically, and to bring that onto people's mind is, of course, it's a change journey. What I think is important is to make sure that we don't automatically address recycling as the first option, but rather keeping the value up. So focusing on the customer, focusing on the functionality and keeping the product alive and valuable as far as possible. Recycling is the last step. And here the design phase is crucial. What do we prioritize when we design for products and design it for potentially multiple life cycles? And I think we need to approach this on several levels. Of course, having the tone from the top is crucial, but also addressing it close to where people are to make them translate it to where they are actually acting. So some people will look at the design strategies, others will look at the business models and the value sort of creation and capture out to customers. So we will have to frame it slightly different, but also embracing that people will have to translate it for themselves. So give it some time. I think we need to have some endurance and persistence to repeat it and then introduce it. And I also very much believe in the inspirational part and a visionary leadership, bringing people on board and showing how each and everyone can contribute. This is very much a leadership topic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric?
Yes, thank you for a very interesting presentation. I was wondering about this Scania house that you presented right at the beginning of your talk, and it is my understanding that this underpins basically all that happens in Scania, especially in operational perspective. And I was wondering whether this transition towards a circular business model has changed this Scania house or its interpretation of it when it comes to what happens inside the factory.
What happens inside the factory? Yeah, I must say in sort of making this inventory of Scania capabilities, I'm impressed with how many principles and methods we are already using within production that are already perfectly in line with circularity. So I would say that a lot of those principles and methods and competences are still sort of valid, but that we should challenge the system boundaries. So kind of using that thinking on bigger systems. And that's where digitalization is needed to make it possible to see those systems, to broaden the scope. But otherwise, I think we have a lot within the Scania production systems and the Scania way, both the house itself, but also the different principles and methods underpinning it. So I'm really I'm really glad for that we already have so much in place, but then rather making sure that we, as you say, sort of the content in the Scania House is translated to somewhat new principles or strategies. So kind of within, as I mentioned, within Parts and Service, we have relied for some time for the 5 R's, sort of what kind of design do we initiate and promote, but then moving on to the 10 R's. So move sort of changing some of the content, but I think that the components in the house are brilliant to enable circularity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anna Karin. Anna?
I think it might be a hand left up.
Oh, okay. Then Walter.
Yes, hello. I am a student at KTH, currently working on my thesis project about circularity. So this is a perfect topic for me. I was wondering, do you have any practical examples of, you mentioned designing for life, and you mentioned a bunch of things to consider, a bunch of aspects about designing for life. But do you have any, for example, material choices or such as that that would help with designing for life?
Well, I can take it as an example packaging, because there we look at the life cycle sort of perspective on where does our packaging sort of end up today? How can we make use of that and see what kind of circumstance the material is likely coming to? So, for example, in the flows where the material is likely going to recycling, to actually make sure that we have 100% recyclable, and making sure that we design already in the first step for dismantling or for disassembly or for reuse, etc. And here, of course, within Scania, we can enable sort of with reverse logistics, we can enable much of that material being used within our own system. But also, I think it's super interesting also looking in more open loops. What if we can't make use of that material? Could someone else make use of it? And potentially see that as a new business opportunity, actually see that as a value that someone can bring into their own sort of operation and make use of, and think about that already in the design phase. So here's where we are trying to enable that kind of thinking in the design phase. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Anneli.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Paulina. Thank you so much for your interesting presentation. It was great to see and learn more about the different initiatives that you have at Scania. My name is Anneli Selvefors. I'm a freelancing designer looking into circular design. And I'm very much curious about the challenges that you might have faced in the production or product development or design work. Could you share some insights from that, if you have any?
Sorry, challenge within what? I didn't get.
Challenges, I mean, looking at product development and design work, are there any particular challenges that you've faced when people at Scania are trying to implement these, your overall approach and also the specific design strategies that you defined?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and one thing I think is key here is how we define success. What is performance, basically? And Scania has a very well optimized system focusing a lot on production. So designing for assembly. So looking at our assembly lines, how can we make that process as productive as possible? Where we need to move is to design for life, sort of design, and primarily looking at our service network. How can we be more productive in the service network? Possibly we will have to lower our demands on productivity inside the assembly, potentially, to make sure that we have optimized production out in the service networks towards customer. And that's, of course, a challenge for us because we're used to measure success in a certain way. We are used to measure productivity in certain spots. And then entering productivity measures in other areas of the organization is one challenge. And so that, I think, is one part of it. Which, yeah, it's a change journey for us. But I think we will have to sort of take it stepwise. And of course, also the measurement of success that we are very used to, measuring the number of units sold. That we will have to completely challenge at some point. It will be a transition. So we will measure it for yet some time, of course. But further ahead, so sort of focus our success measures on the functionality provided rather than the number of units.
Thank you. Then Maria.
Yes. Hello, I'm Maria Ljunggren. I'm an associate professor at Environmental Systems Analysis at Chalmers. So thank you for a very interesting presentation, and also to colleagues at KTH for organizing this seminar. I have been involved in several, for example, MISTRA programs on vehicles. And one thing that I learned is that when it comes to heavy vehicles, a significant part of them reach their true end of life in markets quite far away from the first market. So to say in the less wealthy parts of the world, so that you might have 5, 6, 7, 10, I don't know how many customers, and gradually the manufacturer would sort of lose control or where the vehicle is. So do you agree with that perspective, and do you see that will have to change now when you go more into a service-based thinking of your businesses?
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good topic, I think. And yes, to a certain extent, I think it will be automatically easier to see that the material, if we keep the ownership for longer, we will more easily see the benefit of making use of that material to not waste it, to actually make use of it. So I think to a certain extent, it will be sort of automatic, but I think we will have to help it as well. And not least with, again, the data to know where are our vehicles ending up. Today, there is a lack of information about the complete rolling fleet, what happens at the last stage today. And enable that kind of circularity, we need to visualize those flows. And today we can't. So at least not to the extent that we want to. So that is something, and that's something I believe also would be a good from a industry perspective, to see in what way we could enable common interests here. So not just acting as one, but actually enabling the industry to make even more connections in those flows and visualize them. Could be one way, but it's no, it's not obvious. Of course, we have for some time had focus on the recyclability of the vehicle to make sure that we do design for recyclability, but then it has to also be recycled to make sense. So really to get that control, yeah, to a certain extent it will happen, but I think we also need to help it.
So the service business models might be then for the first use phases of the vehicles, and then later on they would likely be sold.
And here I think that's also benefit from a circular business model, that we keep the relationship with the customer over time much longer. So then if we exchange one individual, and now I'm meaning vehicle, it doesn't matter really for the functionality for the customer. So that we can then optimize where that kind of vehicle is of best value, and then keeping the relationship with the customer. And here I think, since we've had so much focus on the customer for such a long time, that's something we can really continue to build on to keep the relationship. And then if it is a vehicle that is being used for the 9th or 10th sort of owner, it doesn't matter. It's a producing equipment that is available for that customer's need. So that's that. I think that's interesting, but and especially sort of going to autonomous and sort of solutions, it will be even more interesting to actually be able to exchange individuals, which is nice. And then of course we need to make sure that we have the competences available to have the possibility to do that with asset management, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Unfortunately, we are approaching 1 o'clock. I give the word to Amir for closing.
Sorry for the colleagues who could not really take their questions. And Paulina, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation, and really great to see that you have progressed quite well in that thinking, and you have plans as well. So we'll be looking forward to our further, let's say, engagement on that. It's really been great having, worked with you on this journey. But I would like to just ask a final question. I mean, you have, of course, highlighted several different aspects of this, let's say, transition or transformation, however we call it. I am curious if in this process of, let's say, developing this strategy, of course, and then going beyond that strategy into the implementation part in the next 5 to 10 years. So did you look into the competences of the people, right? And did you let's say, see that as some kind of, let's say, requirement or challenge in this stage, for example, and going forward as an essential requirement to, let's say, specific competences which were missing, or maybe they were already there in the Scania environment which were actually supportive, right? This could be an interesting insight for our audience here, and of course people beyond Scania, to know if you had such an experience and what would be your suggestion or advice on that.
Yeah, no, really competence building is key here. So really awareness about the potential, but then enabling it through competence building. And in our inventory, we have seen that we, to a certain extent, have the competences. We just need to apply them in a slightly different way. In other areas, we need to build competence. And here I think it is crucial that we collaborate, especially between business, academia, and of course also with politicians, to make sure that we competence build and enable together. And we do have a rollout of a competence sort of lift within Scania. So and really framing it as lifelong learning, so that where no one knows it all. We all need to sort of find new insights, new competence areas, and inspire to that. And there I think the collaboration part is key here to make that happen.
Great, thank you very much. And I think that we have reached to the end of our let's say scheduled time here. Of course, I think that there is a post seminar time as well, if there are people interested in having discussions. Rafael, is there anything specific to mention about that, or it's just we are concluding here?
Unfortunately, I have to leave. We didn't plan for the seminar.
Okay.
But thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Really,
and thank you, Paulina.
Brilliant initiative. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye.